Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are going to be looking at Crack's upcoming collection for June called In the Tropics. First off, I want to give a big thank you to Crack for sponsoring this video. So while that means I'm being paid to swatch and share these with you all, my thoughts and opinions are honest and my own, the same as with my non-sponsored videos. So the In the Tropics collection features a 6-piece lineup of these super bold, saturated shades. These are all revamped shades of previously discontinued polishes from Crack's catalog. So I do have comparisons for most of these, but some of them are just photo comparisons to the originals. And of course, before I forget, I also have the Jelly of the Month for June. So without further ado, let me just show you the swatches.
The first shade we have is called Night Swim, and it's described as an aqua teal with blue and green shimmers. And this one was previously called Storms a Comin, which I think was retired maybe 2 years ago. Even though it's kind of described as a shimmer polish, I would almost call it a shimmery metallic in a way. I feel like it just had this really pigmented sort of formula, as you can see on the first coat. There's maybe a hint of sheerness, but it's just not as sheer as what you would expect for a typical shimmer, if that makes sense. So I pretty much got this full coverage for me in 2 coats. I think if you look close enough, you can see a hint of nail line, but I just personally don't think it's enough to warrant a third. And for my full hand swatch, I'm showing 2 coats with top coat, and yes, I did slightly ding my middle fingernail, so apologies for that. But other than that, I thought this was so beautiful. I loved that bright blue shimmer. I feel like it almost looks chromy in lower lighting. It's just super pretty. Next we have Papaya, which is a bright orange cream, and this was previously cut on coral. This was such a fantastic cream. It just was so beautiful to apply, super pigmented, as you can see from the first coat alone. Not a perfect one coater, but basically an easy 2-coater in this really gorgeous papaya orange color. There's just not much else to say, honestly. It's a fantastic formula, fantastic color, especially if you're an orange lover. The next shade we have is called Pollinator Friendly, and this is a pink with green to gold flakes and a gold to pink shimmer. And this one was previously McLove Bug, which came out in one of their first Valentine's Day collections, if I remember correctly. This one had another amazing formula, so full coverage and just really impressive looking on the first coat. I honestly wasn't expecting it to look that good. It's just super pigmented, very full coverage with a little hint of sheerness, kind of similar to the first shade. But I think because this has the extra flakies in it, you might be able to get away with it in 1 coat if you're like in a rush. But of course I did 2 coats and it was basically fully opaque. Again, I really love the color, the shimmer in this one. I'm just not super crazy about those little green metallic flakes in there. I know it's like fitting for the theme, but I just didn't love it personally. Next we have another cream, and this one is called Birds of Paradise, which is just described as a rich green cream. This one was previously Stem, which came out in a spring collection a couple of years ago, and I remember not really loving that one because it had a sort of crelly leaning formula, which I just don't prefer with creams. So trying this one just was so satisfying. As I'm sure you saw from that first coat, it was incredibly creamy, super pigmented, and full coverage. Just a theme so far with this collection. Practically a 1-coater. I feel like I did have a little sheer spot towards the left side of my nail, but maybe if your nails are shorter, this could be a 1-coater for you, but if not, it's an easy 2-coater and a super gorgeous color. I feel like this is a perfect tropical foliage green, especially for nail art. Then we have another orange in the collection, and this one is called Fruity Drink. It's described as an orange jelly with orange and gold shimmers, and this one was previously Push and Pop, which I was kind of surprised to see. This was the 2.0 version, which, you know, we'll get to later in the comparison portion. But yeah, this was what I expected more for a traditional shimmer polish. It's just more of that sheer jelly kind of formula, so you can see more of your nail line. Pretty decent coverage on the first coat, but it did build up really nicely in 2 coats. I feel like the shimmer is super glowy, and even though it is described as a jelly base where you can see a hint of nail line, I feel like it just wasn't enough to do a 3rd coat. Like, it wasn't as sheer as other sheer shimmers, if that makes sense. Hopefully you can see what I mean. In direct sunlight, the 2 coats with glossy top coat, there's just barely nail line there. So I really love this one. It's just so orange and you know I love orange polish, so yeah, this was really great. And another one similar to the blue Night Swim that looks almost chromy in lower lighting. And rounding out the collection, we have Vacation Mode, which is just described as a purple cream, and this one was previously the Purp, which we'll get to again later in the comparison portion. But as far as Vacation Mode goes, this was another super satisfying, highly pigmented, saturated cream finish. I would say this one was the closest to looking like a 1-coater on me, so it was just really impressive. I personally didn't find the formula to be too thick, but I could see this one getting thick the more that you use it. And I also personally just prefer slightly thicker formulas, so maybe that's why it doesn't feel super thick to me. But yeah, this was just so gorgeous. I ended up really loving this color on me, and I don't usually love this shade of purple. I feel like it can be, I don't know, just hit or miss, but I found this one to be really flattering and I loved the vibrancy. I think it's going to be super fun for summer. And the jelly of the month for June is called 24 carats, and this one is just described as an orange jelly. I guess I could see this being described as a carrot orange. There is a little bit of this warmth to it as well. Not quite enough that makes it a coral, but maybe it has a coral undertone. So naturally, I am in love with it because, as you know, I love oranges. I love corally oranges. They're just so beautiful for summertime. And I know that this is the 3rd orange of the June releases, but I'm not too mad at it. This also had a really nice formula, pretty even coverage. I did have to slightly repaint the left side of my nail on that first coat, but it self-leveled beautifully. It built up beautifully in 2 coats, just providing a little bit more color and coverage, obviously not obscuring the nail line because it is a jelly. But as you saw with the 3rd coat there, I feel like the nail line was a little bit more obscured, so maybe this has the potential to be almost like a milky jelly, but you are still going to see nail line. So for my full hand swatch, just like the collection that I shared, this is 2 coats with a glossy top coat. And here are my full hand swatches for the In the Tropics collection. Super stunning lineup. I love the warm shades in here. All of them just really give those hot tropical vibes. Moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Night Swim, and I first wanted to show this next to a couple of the blues from last month's release. So we have Infinity Pool and Bloop, which are both totally different finishes and slightly darker colors too. Night Swim is definitely the lightest. In a similar vein, I have Morgan Taylor's Ride the Wave and Holotaco's Sky Lounge, which I just thought these shades of blue were going to be closer, but again, they're just both darker than Night Swim, not to mention different finishes. As far as blue shimmers go, I thought the closest I had in my collection were Glitch's The Smell of Rain and KBShimmer's Splash Talking. But as I'm sure you can see, those two are closer to each other than they are to Night Swim. They're also a lot more sheer, kind of what you expect for a typical shimmer polish. So hopefully you can see how Night Swim almost has this like metallic shimmer finish, but it did look similar to the shimmer in Flash Talking, at least head on. And lastly, I think the closer shades in my collection are Cirque's Wipeout or Prism Parade's Poolside. Neither are really that close enough to be dupes in my opinion, because again, they are both just more of those sheer shimmer formulas. Poolside is also a lot lighter, like more of an aqua overall, and Cirque has a deeper base color. I don't have Storms of Comin anymore to compare directly, but looking at the photo and going off of my memory, I do remember Storms of Comin being a little bit more sheer, but obviously buildable. But the bigger difference is that it had these hollow micro glitters. And speaking of blues I don't have anymore, I also wanted to show a photo of Baked Blue because I feel like it's the closest to this blue shimmery metallic. I think Baked Blue is a little darker and maybe more muted. For Papaya, I do still have Cut on Coral, so you can see the original and the new and improved version. Cut on Coral was originally a really pigmented cream as well, so the main difference here is just the color. As an orange lover, I do love both, but I feel like I almost prefer the original. For some other mid-tone kind of oranges, I pulled out ILNP's Sunny Days and Holo Taco's Oh My Gourd. The ILNP is more of this like bleached neon corally orange color, so that definitely doesn't compare. I would say Holo Taco is definitely the closest, being that mid-toned, almost like pumpkin orange, but it is a little bit darker, maybe a smidge warmer too, and with a crully formula. Next, for Pollinator Friendly, I pulled out Crack's Flower Pressing and Holo Taco's Encryption Key, just because I thought as far as like these mid-tone pink shimmers go, these would be the closest, but between these, the Holo Taco is definitely closer. Flower Pressing is a lot more sheer, more of this magenta purpley shimmer color. I would call Encryption Key a sheer shimmer, but I know it doesn't really look as sheer next to Pollinator Friendly, and I figured to sort of recreate it, I could do a coat of Crack's Mascara Flakes, even though that is a black flaky topper as opposed to the green to gold or pink multi-chrome in Pollinator Friendly. And some other shimmery pink shades that I pulled out were Prism's Paloma Sunset, which arguably is a little bit more coral leaning with a strong gold shimmer. So for a mid-tone pink, I pulled out Glitch's Lovey Dovey, which is a magnetic, so it is a totally different finish, but just color-wise, I feel like they're somewhat close, though Glitch is a little bit lighter, maybe not as warm. I unfortunately don't have McLove Bug in my collection anymore, so I just have a photo to compare, and it does look really similar. I would guess that the biggest improvement that makes it a 2.0 is the more pigmented full coverage base. Moving on to Birds of Paradise, I first pulled out Zoya's Nessie and 786 Cosmetics Kauai, which are these two greens that are both a little too light and dark respectively, but I just thought they were in that same shade range, if that makes sense. So yeah, they are definitely not dupes, but they make for a nice little skittle. The only other sort of grassy green that I have is Olive F's Forest, which I would say is more of a true neutral or potentially yellow leaning green. I feel like there is this almost drop of blue in Birds of Paradise, but the bigger difference is that Forest is a few shades darker. And lastly, here is a picture of Stem for comparison, which was the original shade. Like I said before, I remember Stem just not having a great formula. It was more thin and crelly and uneven, so definitely improvement to the formula, but I think the color is the same. Just kidding, I have one more comparison, and it's with a photo of Holo Taco's Modest Moss, which looks kind of similar, but I think Modest Moss is a little bit darker, more of like the fall version of this color. Next, for Fruity Drink, here it is next to Push and Pop, which was the original shade. You can see it's like such a night and day difference. Push and Pop is definitely a lot more sheer, almost with a peachy, jelly, or crelly base. I would say it's almost like the spring version of Fruity Drink. So I thought something slightly closer might be Footworthy, which is a little bit more coral in color, and it has more of this purpley shimmer, but it's closer value-wise. For some other shimmery oranges, I pulled out Mooncat's Flight of the Monarchs and ILNP's Orange Pop, which technically is a magnetic, not really a shimmer, but it's just closer in color, at least compared to Flight of the Monarchs. I would still say ILNP is a bit darker. I think the closest that I have in my collection is Sylvanclaw's Sun Haze, which is a very vibrant orangey shimmer, but it actually has more of a stronger gold shimmer head on, while Cracked is like orange shimmer on orange base, if that makes sense. So I'm showing these in 1, 2, and 3 coats just to show you how much they build up. It might be kind of hard to tell from the first coat alone, but the Sylvanclaw is definitely very sheer, again more of that typical expected sheer shimmer formula, while Cracked builds up a lot easier. So I found that 3 coats of the Sylvanclaw looks a little closer to Cracked in 2. Next, for vacation mode, I first pulled out China Glaze's Left My Heart in Havana, which is a mid-tone purple, but much more obviously blue-toned, so it doesn't really compare. I think the closest shade of purple that I had to this was Morgan Taylor's Tell Me About It, but it is a shimmery, pearlescent sort of formula, so it's not really that close at all. Just for color reference, they look sort of close in the bottle. And here is vacation mode next to the Purp, which is supposedly the original color, but as you can see, it's not only a shimmer, but a much darker and more cool-toned purple shade. So personally, I think this is a lot closer to a 2.0 of Purple Beardtongue, being this almost orchidy purple kind of color. From what I remember, Purple Beardtongue was a Crelly formula with a subtle shimmer. And lastly, for 24 carats, I first pulled out Cirque's Fuyū or Sherbet jelly, which is a corally orange kind of polish, but as I'm sure you can tell, it's a few shades lighter, almost like a pastel version. So I think the closer shade between these two at least is Cirque's Jarritos jelly, which is a warm orange color, but it is just a few shades darker. This is 2 coats of each, by the way. And lastly, here is 24 carats next to ILNP's Tango, which is their orange jelly. At first glance, they might look pretty similar, but on the nail, I think you can tell a clear difference where Tango is a little bit more of a yellow leaning orange.
So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of cracked polishes in the Tropics collection. This is going to be launching next Friday, June 19th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So I will have Crack's website link down below. And as a reminder, I'm also an affiliate with Cracked. So if you want to shop these or anything else on the website while supporting me and my channel, you can use my discount code YOGI10 to save 10% off your order. As always, a big thank you to all of you who do support me by using my code, because you all went super crazy last month with their Memorial Day sale. So let me know what you ordered. I would love to hear about that. Back to this collection. I thought it was so stunning. Like, it really is so bold and saturated in a way that does feel tropical, especially with this color palette. And even like including the jelly of the month, you can see we just have a lot of oranges in this lineup. So naturally, I love that. But yeah, I think generally I really love and am impressed by how much better these polishes were compared to the originals. Because as you saw, I don't have some of the original polishes because I just destashed them. I wasn't super impressed by like the formula or maybe the color. I'm still not 100% sure if vacation mode is supposed to be the replacement or 2.0 of the Purp or Purple Beardtongue, because I feel like to me it looks way more like the latter, just without the shimmer. But I am just so obsessed with it as a color. I just found it so much more flattering on me for some reason. But with some of the other shades, I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like I kind of like the original a little bit more. It's mainly, funny enough, with the oranges, with Cut on Coral and Fruity Drink, where I can see how these are like the new and improved versions, because they just have like more color payoff, more shimmer, you know, pigment in there. I know the base of Push Pop really doesn't look super exciting because it's like a light peachy orange shade, you know, maybe not the most flattering, but I can't help but still really like it, you know. So maybe if there was something a little bit in between of the original Push Pop and Fruity Drink, because to me this orange just still feels like a little too loud for an orange shimmer, at least, you know, again, for what I like on my nails specifically. And I almost feel the same with the new shade Papaya, where it's a gorgeous color on its own, but then when I compare it to Cut on Coral, like the original, I just kind of like that slightly softer color. Unfortunately, my biggest letdown, I guess, is Pollinator Friendly, because I love the base color with the shimmer, but I just don't love those flakies in there, which is pretty much how I felt about McLove Bug, where it's like so cute in theory, and you know, the color is really pretty, but on me, I just don't love it. And it just pains me because it's like my favorite color of the lineup. But objectively speaking, they are all fantastic formulas, just so impressive to paint with. I can really feel the improvement, especially for the cream polishes. And you know that I also love the Jelly of the Month. It's just that beautiful shade of like orangey coral that I think is so perfect for summer. So make sure you let me know what you think of these, especially compared to last month's summer collection, because while they both are very summery, I feel like I am a little bit more partial to last month's lineup, even though finish wise, I would gravitate more towards these, if that makes sense, but they still are just fantastic across the board. So I would love to hear your thoughts down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!